¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
¿Quiénes somos? Somos CHIRLA TV. Bienvenidos a este programa que tenemos aquí invitado a Polonio Morales. Polo, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
And Polo is joining us today because we're going to be discussing a lot of the politics around the federal government. We know that you have questions regarding what's up with all this immigration reform. When is it going to be an event near me? Well, this is the show where you want to tune in because we'll be definitely talking about all those things. Como comenté aquí, Polo trabaja con CHIRLA, es el director de Asuntos Externos, que es Director of External Affairs. And so, Polo, talk to us a little bit about what that means.
Well, Pedro, that means I spend a lot of time talking to very many people in the community. I work towards building coalition, consensus, and alignment to be able to pass immigration reform, to be able to pass pro-immigrant policies at the local, state, federal, and national level.
Great. And one of the groups that you manage is the California Table. A little bit of history around the California Table that you'd like to share.
Yeah, the California Table has been around since 2009. And so I didn't start off with CHIRLA when I first joined the California Table, but it was during this effort to pass immigration reform under President Obama. And so what came out of that was the Reform Immigration for America campaign. So we started organizing across California, across the country, all congressional districts to get this vote to happen. At the end of the day, the vote didn't happen the way that we wanted to. It didn't progress, and so we were not able to pass immigration reform. And now, because of that, as a result, we're facing a major crisis with our immigrant community, especially under the previous administration and all the damage that has been done.
Yeah, one of the political analysis that I've heard is that when we had the opportunity to pass immigration reform, it did not get done, which eventually led to a bunch of horrible policies and an anti-immigrant administration as well that was attacking immigrants left and right, which led us to this moment now, right? And
exactly.
What's the moment now?
Yeah, so the moment now is a tremendous opportunity. So because we have a statewide structure that CHIRLA is leading at the state level, we are able to work with partners across California to be able to update them on what's happening right now in immigration reform, this opportunity that we have. We started organizing the California Table for Immigration Reform back in September of 2020. And so as we anticipated a potential for a new president, a new Congress, we thought to ourselves, we want to make sure that we have California's collective power and our voices heard when it comes time to have these discussions around immigration reform. And as we see now, that opportunity has presented itself. We are going to be able to, get, closer than we've ever had, I believe, under this current administration.
Right, and you're talking about 2020 and almost like the aspirations or the possibilities rather of what could come ahead. And so what did the groups say? What was the campaign at the time that you all landed on as, anticipation, right? The anticipation of what was coming.
Yeah, so through these conversations with partners that represented the TPS community, the DACA community, the Black immigrant community, the refugees, the asylees, the Muslim community, the Jewish community. We asked everybody, the undocumented community, what is it that you want to see out of immigration reform? And so we got together and had conversations around policy, but organizing as well, because we know we can talk and sit around and come up with beautiful plans, but unless we have something organized on the ground, like a campaign, which inevitably that's what we ended up doing, the Yes Immigrants Forward campaign is something that we were able to create collectively to be able to start the discussion early on under the Biden administration, and it's carried us now into being able to influence what that national policy is going to look like at the end of the day.
And the Yes Immigrants Forward campaign is something that we've seen on CHIRLA's website, we've seen on CHIRLA's Facebook, the social media pages as well. That's informing folks of the actual advocacy that's going on. One thing that I don't want us to skip here is the promises that administration also made leading up to them being elected. So if you can remind folks, what were some of the commitments that this administration has made?
Some of the commitments of the Biden administration was to reverse a lot of the damage done under the Trump administration. And so the DACA program was going to be, taken away once again. there was a promise to bring it back. And so that's what President Biden did once he became elected. The other was around TPS, and there's still some announcements for some countries for temporary protective status for the folks to be able to stay here. So we kept pushing for, on top of all those things, also a stop to deportations and also a path to citizenship and some immigration reform under his administration.
And the turmoil that's taking place also in Afghanistan now, I'm sure it's bringing different conversations with the administration as well as to how we're going to support the refugee programs, right?
Exactly. And so this is a terrible situation that's happened. 20 years that we've been at war, and now the Taliban is under control and folks are having to flee, and we have to take care of those folks.
It's a lot more to talk about here with Apolonio Morales, again, Director of External Affairs at CHIRLA. We'll be right back.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Regresamos aquí con CHIRLA TV, platicando sobre las campañas política federal para la reforma migratoria y qué es lo que estamos viendo a nivel federal. Polo, por favor, platícanos un poco de what has been like this new campaign. What are the asks? What are the demands of this administration when it comes to immigration reform?
So we've been asking for path to citizenship. We want to make sure that this doesn't just end up being something for the dreamers or the DACA recipients or path to citizenship. That's the case that we've been making all along is about everybody. And so there are 10.5 million undocumented immigrants in this country, and we need to do something for them. So we've been working with the administration, with Speaker Pelosi and with the Senate, Senator Alex Padilla out of California, who's been championing immigration, to be able to say, if we have an opportunity, let's take it. But let's not go for the lowest hanging fruit. Let's actually go for the whole thing. Because we know if we don't have these major changes, we're going to continue to have these issues. Folks are going to remain undocumented, and the fear and threat of deportation will be very real for them.
Yeah, it's something that folks have continuously said in many years of like the 11 million, right? Why it's even said of like legalize the 11 million is that people feel like I'm going to get forgotten or I'm going to get left out. And so what about this like policy around the registry day that we've been hearing more recently, actually? What's that about?
Yeah, it's something that CHIRLA has been pushing for a while now, actually. And as soon as these questions began and working with the administration to try to better inform what are the possibilities or the opportunities that exist. One of them is registry. So registry functions the way that a statute of limitations would function. And if you look at the registry date right now, it's January 1st, 1972. So if you're undocumented and you came before 1972 in January, then you can just go ahead and apply for citizenship. Basically, the government says, well, you've been here long enough, you've worked all your life, you've paid taxes and everything.
You're next in line.
You're next in line. And so what we want to do is really push for that date to be way more in current recent history here. So whether it's 2010, 2011, or 2015, if that registry date gets pushed up, 80% of the undocumented population came here 10 years or more ago. And so the folks have been here for more than 10 years. So if you just do a simple adjustment to the registry date, that would provide opportunity, but only Congress can do that. And that's why it's important for us to fight for that too.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned that, it's like we've been knocking on the door for passing certain legislation, but not necessarily asking for a change in date of, if we're thinking of this as a line, the line has been closed for everyone else who didn't get to the country before 1972. And so this would update it so that more folks, like you said, 80% possibly would be able to be covered, which would be huge to the immigrant community across the country. And I think people are hopeful.
Yeah, I think people are very hopeful. We've gone through a pandemic. COVID-19 has exacerbated really terrible circumstances and situations, housing, healthcare. Folks have witnessed their family members die before they've actually been able to adjust their status. And so when we look at those contributions or the sacrifices that have been made by individuals in this country, those folks need a path to citizenship. And so whether that's registry or any of the other pieces of legislation that have passed, the Dream and Promise Act, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, Essential Workers, the U.S. Citizenship Act, all that includes components of what we want to see at the end of the day. Now, if there's people that are missing outside of that, we want to include registry as part of that and 245I, which means folks would be able to apply for an adjustment of status here in the U.S. instead of having to go back to their home country.
Esa de 245I muchas veces escuchan a la gente en los radios o con sus abogados favoritos que siguen por las redes sociales. Sería otra vez que si traen el programa, nos ayudaría a muchísimos, ¿no? A millones de personas. Bueno, Polo, so can we talk a little bit about what are the allies saying with these demands? So you had the demands of the campaign, you presented them. What are we hearing?
Yeah, so what we're hearing is we all want to take this opportunity. So we work with community organizations, with immigrant rights organizations, with labor, with the unions. And so what everybody is in agreement is we need to pass immigration reform, and it has to be through this reconciliation process. And so because of that, we're organizing a week of actions. And we've been organizing, you've seen us on TV or you've seen a lot of social media posts, and we've been meeting with our members of Congress, having town hall meetings, explaining the registry to them, really being present to make sure that we're continuing to move that ball forward until we win this issue.
Yep, so week of action, September 18th and days before, right?
September 13th through the 18th, that's a week of actions.
September 13th to the 18th, people are gonna be throwing down across California. Look up those actions. And in Washington, D.C. on the 21st, there's going to be a march as well for the We Are Home campaign. And so definitely stay connected so that you can join the efforts.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
All right, welcome back to CHIRLA TV. We're discussing the week of action for citizenship here in the United States. Specifically, there's some actions here in California. Polo, let's do an overview of the different actions and cities where there's going to be activities.
Yeah, so there's plenty of activities happening between September 13th and the 18th. As I've said, the Yes Immigrants Forward campaign has leveraging its collective power, our relationships with our elected officials to get one step closer to immigration reform. And so because those decisions are being made in Congress right now, who's going to be included, what does a legalization program look like, we want to make sure we influence those decisions by calling on Congress to make sure that citizenship is inclusive and broad. And so this week of actions, we have folks, our partners out in San Jose, so PAC San Jose and Humane Agenda are helping to organize an event in San Jose on the 18th as well. They're having a march. There's folks organizing in San Bernardino, in Orange County, in Fullerton. There's going to be a car rally. We're organizing a march here in Los Angeles. And so all this to say there's a lot of activity going on because we believe that if this is the opportunity that we have, we need to make sure we get the best out of this opportunity to make sure that folks have that path to citizenship at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing you mentioned that I want you to emphasize is that these events are taking place right before something is moving in Congress, correct? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, so that something is the conversation around reconciliation. So the Senate passed the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation resolution. So basically what they said is we have $3.5 trillion we can do something with. While that included $107 billion for a legalization program to be able to be discussed and figured out. And so that same bill went to the House and that passed out of the House of Representatives. And thankfully, we were able to get some of our Fresno partners to be able to put some, so send a letter and have conversations with Representative Jim Costa, who was one of the moderates who was having issues with the larger infrastructure, the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan bill, but also the $3.5 trillion budget resolution. So ultimately what happened at the end of the day is all the Democrats voted in favor, and so it passed the House. So now we have those $107 billion. Now we have to figure out what is going to be inside the legalization program. And so if that money has been set aside, because once you legalize folks, once you have a status change, they qualify for programs. And so that money that has been allocated would go towards the people that are adjusting their status to be able to qualify for Medicare, to qualify for other types of government programs. And so folks are not left out, right? And so the more money's in there, the more people can legalize, the more people are going to be impacted.
The way it was explained to me that there's $107 billion, it's like if someone gave you an allowance to go to the market and do your shopping, right? And it's like, okay, you have to know that you have a certain amount, you have to be conscious of that, and that'll limit how much you're going to be able to, in this case, how many people you're going to be able to legalize, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, it's an opportunity. We're organizing this large march here in Los Angeles, the Yes to Citizenship March. It's going to start at MacArthur Park. And what we want to do is make sure that folks get the message, right? We want the community to come out. We want folks to really underscore the importance of this moment in time. we're not going to get another shot. Not in the near future, I can tell you that. 2022 is an election year. There's a presidential election in 2024. Things only get much more difficult to try to pass immigration reform. Our shot is now, and we need to take it now.
So the invitation's here, especially for the folks in Southern California, to look out for our events with CHIRLA. For Los Angeles, you said MacArthur Park, 10 a.m., and I'll be there. So I think I'll see if I can recruit Edgar, who's out on vacation right now, to join us as well. I'm sure he's more than willing to join us to the marcha, and Karen as well, to be there with you also. Look for us out there. But September 18th, Saturday, no excuses. This is the last shot we got or one of the biggest chances we have, rather, to pass immigration reform. And one way to do it is come with your walking shoes. Will there be signs? People bring their signs? What do you?
Yes, bring your signs, T-shirts, whatever you want. Some good, comfortable walking shoes. It's a 2.4-mile walk. And so we like long marches in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, we do, for sure. We got a long history of long marches out here, and we don't shy away because we like to make noise here in our traffic-filled city of Los Angeles. Add a little bit more traffic to it, but with a good cause, which is for immigrants and immigration reform. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Don't go nowhere.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Regresamos aquí en CHIRLA TV, ya que estamos platicando sobre esta acción que vamos a tomar del 13 al 18 de septiembre. Y están todos invitados a sus diferentes actividades aquí en California, en diferentes ciudades. Y en Washington, D.C. también se les hace invitación a los compañeros que andan allá cerca de esos rumbos, que pueden llegar a la marcha el 21 de septiembre, que es la marcha en Washington, D.C. de We Are Home. Esa es la organización que está trayendo a la gente ahí para participar. Por lo que, ¿qué debe de traer otra vez la gente para participar el 18 de septiembre aquí en Los Ángeles?
Su propia persona. We need people to show up because, again, this is the best opportunity for us to pass immigration reform through reconciliation. Mm-hmm. And so for us to make sure we make a big splash and make sure that the press gets it right, make sure that our friends and neighbors get it right, to make sure that they hear it all the way to Washington, D.C., we want to make sure that immigration reform includes a path to citizenship, that it is inclusive and broad. And so we don't want a bunch of folks left out. We don't want just, farm workers, only one, category or group of folks. We want everybody to be included and have an opportunity to adjust their status.
Mm-hmm. At the date of this release for this, because we're recording this before, it would be still before the governor recall election. So is that something else that folks from California should definitely be putting in the calendar as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. We encourage folks to vote and get educated about what is the cost of replacing a governor during this time. We're in a moment in time where we've gone through a pandemic. We have a lot of federal funding and state funding to be able to help folks get, through this pandemic into the next phase, hopefully out of this pandemic. Yeah. And so it's important for us to remember, that our decisions are going to have consequences. And so do we want to continue moving forward in the trajectory that we've been on? Or do you want to throw into, chance and perhaps see what comes about with the new governor? What's important is that our community comes out and votes, because without the vote, especially the Latino vote here in California, the immigrant vote is a very powerful vote. And so if you have your voices heard, then, we're going to see the outcome of the election. This special election will have repercussions. So we have to remember that it's going to be very important for us to engage in it this time around. Yeah,
and the election, again, at the time of this showing, the election will only be a few days away, 14th of September. And so, but you could already vote as early as soon as you see this video clip here. You can go ahead and vote already here in California. And you were mentioning to me, Polo, during the commercial break around the ballots, that some folks have already mailed in their ballots. So what's the update on that?
So there's over 1 million ballots that have already been returned. And so there was about 20 million that have been mailed out. And so, there's still plenty of time, a couple more weeks before the September 14th date. And so folks have gotten that mail-in ballot, in their mailbox. And so it's time to, look for it, fill it out, send it out before the September 14th date. And so that way your vote will count, and, you won't, be blindsided by what happens, on September 15th, for instance.
Yeah. At CHIRLA, folks here are amazing. They do it all. They're doing a statewide Get Out the Vote campaign to get Latinos out to vote and participate in their democracy, in our democracy, and also at the same time organizing this week of action.
Exactly. So we don't stop, no.
Yeah, and we can't, because we know how important these issues are to the Latinos, to the families that are out there. Polo, were you living in California when we had in 1994 when there was
Governor
Prop
Davis,
187?
Prop 187. Yes, I was I was in high school when that happened, and I remember that was the first time that I felt that my immigrant family and community did not belong. And so it was very disempowering to see that, to have this anti-immigrant message prevail. I think California has come a long way, and it's not by accident. It's actually, a lot of community organizations like CHIRLA, a lot of the unions, a lot of community organizations have come together to really make a difference and push back on this anti-immigrant narrative. And so we've prospered because of that here in California. The rest of the country needs to see that as well.
Hence the invitation for folks to participate in their democracy, so that few folks don't decide the fate and future of many, right? And so please participate and if you can, vote in this important election, September 14th, if you live in California. Polo, where can folks get involved to get more information around the Week of Action or the LA March for Citizenship?
Yeah, so definitely we have followed CHIRLA through all our social media. We have a Facebook account or a Twitter account. We'll be posting information about the Week of Actions and how folks can get involved. So stay tuned. And again, show up. Part of democracy is being able to show up. And so, whether it's at the ballot box or it's out in the street, we want to make sure that we're going to win this immigration reform for our community once and for all.
All right, thank you all so much. Become a CHIRLA member, support us as we want to go ahead and continue putting these types of events. Support us online, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we're there. No se crean, but just follow us on those at least. And we'll see you next time. Thank you again for joining us here at CHIRLA TV. Thank you, Polo, for being with us.
Thank you.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?